When I was a kid, my dad would play some really mean pranks on us. He would wear clown masks and hide under our beds. Sometimes, he would pretend that he was dying until all of us were in tears. The most traumatizing was when he dressed as the Grinch and stole all our presents on Christmas Eve, but that's besides the point. The prank where my mother drew the line was when he got a ladder and banged on my window that was on the second floor of our house. That was pretty scary for a 15-year-old, but after a while, we became numb and not scared of those kind of things. Dark shadow standing in the corner of the kitchen in the middle of the night? Oh, that's just Dad. Don't worry about that. He was proud because he thought it made us tough, and in a way it did, but it definitely came with its cons. The one night, my sister had at least 4 friends over, and our parents were out, so I was stuck watching them until they got back. I was 18 and my sister and her friends were 13, so they were downstairs doing normal teenager activities. Suddenly, I heard a scream come from the room they were hanging out in, and my sister said that one of her friends got scared because she thought someone was in the window. It had been a while since Dad had done one of these pranks, but maybe he wanted to scare my sister and her friends. We looked at each other and immediately thought it was Dad, so we didn't think too much of it. I texted my parents just to make sure it was him, of course. Back from dinner early, I said to my mom. Yeah, we decided to hang out with the neighbors for a little. Be home in a bit. That confirmed for me that it was my dad who was in the window, so everyone went back to what they were doing. After about an hour, my parents got home, and I was talking to them while the girls were in the living room right next to us. You got Grace's friend pretty good there, Dad, I said. What do you mean? He replied to me. You know, when you were just looking at them through the window. That would creep me out for sure. My dad's face looked ill, and him and my mom shared a worried look. I replied, Come on, guys. Stop trying to freak me out. I know it was you. Call the police, my mom said, and my father immediately got on the phone. The police were quick to tell my father that they had already caught someone peeping into the houses that night, and he was in custody. The man staring in the window was not my father at all. When I was in high school, my friends and I liked to drive around and cause a lot of trouble. I mean, what else is there to do in a suburban town in New Jersey in the middle of the winter? We did some pretty awful things looking back. The worst was, whenever there was an open construction site, we would go there, and in the middle of the night we would destroy the place by peeing everywhere and running through the walls. So it's safe to say we deserved what was coming to us next. About 30 years ago, 20 years ago at the time, there was a high school girl in my town that was brutally raped and murdered by an older man. We know who did it, so at least we had that closure as a town. But the issue was that people just couldn't leave her alone. Every now and then, it's reported that her grave is badly vandalized. Normal humans would hear that and be disgusted, but my friends and I were not good people in high school, as I already told you. So we finished up mini-golfing for the night, and were in need of something to entertain us. All of a sudden, we heard a loud scream that came from the graveyard that this girl rests at. Screaming meant fun to us, so we hopped in the car and drove right over. Once we arrived, we heard the screaming come from right where the grave was, so we drove to it and turned the car off. But then, our hearts dropped. A little girl was standing next to the grave, crying. Her eyes seemed like they were fully black, and she just stared into our souls. We were horrified, and wouldn't you know, as we sprint back to my friend's car and it doesn't start back up. So we're sitting here, thinking that we were the people to see the real-life ghost, and that she's haunting us as we sit in terror. Unfortunately for us, a ghost would have been the best-case scenario. From the shadows, we saw at least 25 people, all in masks, walking towards us. They were doing it in a slow way that you would see in a horror movie. My friend was desperately trying to start his car, but it wouldn't work, and we finally realized that the hood had been popped open this whole time. While we were investigating the grave, someone had messed with our car. My father was a gun owner, and he taught me to only use guns to defend yourself. I had always carried one of his guns with me for the biggest emergencies. The masked individuals had gotten to the car and smashed the windows through, were trying to pull us out. I shot the gun into the air, and they all ran away. And luckily, the entire town heard the shot, so the police showed up in no time. I don't know what those people wanted to do with us, but it taught us to stop with our bad behavior. I actually got into a lot of trouble just for carrying the gun, and so did my father. But in that moment, I'm so happy that I had it. I would be dead without it. It was the middle of summer and I was at a friend's high school graduation party. At some point, my buddy who lives in the middle of the woods showed up. After we settle in, we start to talk. "Hey, can I show you guys something weird?" he says. "Sure." He takes out his phone and shows 2 voicemails from No Caller ID. It was a common prank in high school to spook your friends using the No Caller ID, so we didn't think too much of it. Except these voicemails felt different. The first one came at 2:40 a.m., and it was haunting. At first it was all mumbling, but then in the faintest voice, we heard a woman say, "Please help me. I'm not that far." It almost sounded like one of those voicemails you would hear when a girl was calling you in a super intoxicated stage. We were shaken up to say the least, because the common feeling was that this was serious. After a little conversation, we all agreed to hear the next one. Our friend had explained that he did not wake up to this first call, but the second ring woke him up, and once he saw it was No Caller ID, he decided not to answer it. The next call came at 3:33 a.m. This one started out with more of the same stuff, a little bit of crying and mumbling mixed in, but we could not understand what she was saying. "Please help me, I'm so close." The voice continued to mumble for a little while longer while we heard screams, and then a man's voice came on the phone. "Sorry about this. We're all good here," he said, and then hung up. The friend was awake at 4 a.m. and scared shitless, having no idea what to do except hold his gun close all night. What if he called the police and it was just a prank? After laying in bed for a while longer, staring at the ceiling, he finally got some rest. The next day brought us to the party. After he told us the story, we tried using apps to uncover where the call was coming from, but it was traced to nothing. What we could not understand was why someone who was in need of help would use a No Caller ID. We called it a night around 12 a.m., and I went out to my car alone. In the suburbs, it's pretty unusual to see people walking, but I saw a normal-looking couple walking with their daughter and their dog. I waved to them, and they stared coldly into my soul. I figured it was because I was a little wobbly from the drinks and they saw me getting into the driver's seat, but I only lived a few houses down. That threw me off a little more, as I was already scared from those voicemails, but that isn't important right now, I suppose. As I laid in bed, I thought about the voice on the voicemail and how it gave me chills. The next morning, I woke up to some text messages from my friend. They were images of his house that were taken on a Polaroid and left at his bedroom window. "I did not take these pictures," he said to me. "I think we may have a real issue on our hands." A few friends decided it would be a good idea to stake out our friend's house for extra protection and to hopefully catch whoever the person was. The long summer day turned into night, and our drinking made us forget what the point of the whole thing was anyway. As the night went on, nothing happened, and in the morning, we chalked it up to some kids pulling a prank on us. We went our separate ways for about a week, and I received a call from the same friend. "You have to check out what I just sent you. I'm freaking out." It was a news article. A 12-year-old's body was found in a field. The article went on to say that the body was found in a field literally 0.2 miles from my friend's house. The article did not stop there, though. They explained how the DNA evidence they found on the child had matched up with a local man. This little girl had been missing for 2 weeks, and he admitted to everything. But it was not only him, but his wife as well. They said they had been making fake voicemails to people, saying they needed help, in hopes of preying on others. What haunted me the most, though, was when I saw their mugshots. I had recognized them from somewhere. I wish I would have known. I thought they were just going for a walk.